Hello, how are you? Did you frizzy up your hair? Was your hair frizzy yesterday? Last time I was, whenever I like frizzy hair. I was in a meeting with this lady yesterday or last night. She was in Cairo, Egypt, and she had, I'm pretty sure that those fake braids that you put in the hair, that she had like 100 of them. Like it was just amazing. It was like, that's cool. That's cool. Although it seemed like you're in Cairo, Egypt, it seemed like it'd be awfully hot. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Feel free to find it. For whatever reason, that's fine. All right, while we're waiting, I will tell you that I talked to Shirley yesterday after I spelled her name correctly. And she's got 10 minutes of talking, and she's prepared to take the entire class. You guys ask questions. She's told to start following up, following up. She had a fun character. What? She had fun. You know, I actually don't know her all that. Yes. She definitely has experience with we got the question of job interviews. She's been a reporter. New York Times. She has she's president and executive director of the National Journalist. She worked at the New York Times. What are you laughing at? Nothing. Nothing. Not laughing. I'm not laughing at nothing. Oh, Washington Post. I knew that sounded right. 25 career at the year at the Washington Post, where she rose to deputy managing editor. This is the story you were supposed to read before you came to class. The deputy managing editor. She taught at Howard University. She did the editing internship. Because I run one of the editing program that she participated in years ago. I run one of the editing programs. And as punctual as she is, it actually concerns me that she's not here. Well, I don't have an email from her. So we'll just hang tight. There's also a really nice, I thought this was funny. Here's an example of just society, right? Here's the press release that the Dow Jones News Fund put out. And I was looking for other stories on here. And so I find, not this one. This one here from NABJ. And I got into it and it looks really nice and it looks the same. And it's exactly the same story. All I did was copy and paste the press release. And then I come back to the Talking Biz News, right? And here's exactly the same story. Right? So I couldn't even find another story about her. But let's look at her on Rate My Professor. Let's see what Rate My Professor shows. Just for fun. 4.5 out of 5. That's pretty good. Do I have a 4.5 out of 5? No, it's okay. Huh? I've never looked. Never looked. Never looked. Never looked. Never looked. We are on. And click. All right, how's everybody doing? What's going on in the world? Lots. So, okay, when was the first shooting? When was the Atlanta shooting? It's odd, but yeah. Was it within the last 7 days? So within a week, we've had 2 mass shootings. Somebody watched it. You see her pop up. Tell me. She did. Oh, yeah, I told you she was prompt. I told you she was prompt. I just got through telling them that you were very prompted at 2 o'clock. Look at that, right on the nose. And I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good, and we can hear you too. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to zoom back out to my class so you can see them. All right, everybody turn around and wave. There's my class, and we've got good audio, and they can hear you. And I'm going to control things from the Zoom thing, and we are recording. So
can I not show my video, my picture?
You certainly can. All I need to do is click that little button right there. And
okay, I didn't know if that was.
Nope.
I do want to also share my screen at some point, but.
Yep, you can show you should be able to share your screen and show your video right now.
Okay, great.
I just had to make you co-host.
All right.
There she is. Ta-da!
Hi.
Everybody say hi.
They're like, we already did this.
It's a beautiful day here in Northwest Texas. I don't know up in Princeton how beautiful it is, but everybody wants to have class outside because yesterday was gloomy, wet, and rainy, and today it's sunny and warm. So.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. I'm actually in Maryland. I'm outside DC, which is where I've been for quite a while now. And yeah, eventually I'll move to Princeton, which is where the Dow Jones News Fund is based.
There we go. We were talking right before class, and I said you worked for the New York Times, and then I corrected myself and said Washington Post. You can see in the background Washington Post. So
yeah.
All right, it's all you.
Okay. Well, great. Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm happy to be with you guys. I'm Shirley Carswell. I'm the executive director of the Dow Jones News Fund, and I've been in my job about 8 or 9 weeks now. Before that, I had taught at Howard University, taught journalism. And before that, I worked for about 25 years at the Washington Post. And so most of my news experience comes from those jobs. And you know, I feel like I miss teaching. I did it as recently as last semester, but I did not like teaching online. So I hope that you guys will help me out. I'm going to try to involve you in the discussion, but I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about some sort of generic things, and then I'm going to turn the tables a little bit, and I'm going to ask you a question, and then you can ask me questions if you want, or you can ask me questions as I talk if that's easier. One thing about this setup, that I didn't realize, Dr. Wilson, is that I can't see anybody else's face. All I can see is the back of your head. So that's kind of strange.
If you have questions, I can make them come up front.
Okay.
See their faces.
All right. So I'll tell you just a little bit about my how I came to journalism, and it will tie into some of the things I'm going to show you about how to get hired in a pandemic. And I understand some of you are graduating, will be looking for work or are looking for work, and others are probably looking for summer internships. So I was not a typical, I won't say typical, but I was not one of those people who came into journalism, you know, and said from a young age, I always knew I wanted to be a journalist. I always wanted to work for the Washington Post. You know, I just wasn't that person. I kind of came into the job in a way that has marked my career, really, where I was at the right place at the right time, and things happened in a way that landed me in positions that I never would have thought of for myself. So, you know, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was born there. My dad worked in the steel mill of Pittsburgh, typical blue collar childhood. I'm the youngest of 6 children. And so I came up, you know, really not having expectations of going to college. But by the time I came along as the 6th child, I was able to get a college. I was able to go to college. I was the first in my family to graduate from college. So, and I attended Howard University, which is where I taught for the last 7 or 8 years. But anyway, I came to Howard and I needed to declare a major. And my English teacher in high school had told me that I was a decent writer and I loved to read. So she said she thought journalism might be a good career path for me. So when I had to find a major, that was the thing that caught my attention. I put it down, and, you know, the rest, as they say, is history. I became passionate about journalism after coming to the class, after coming to learn about it, not, you know, coming to study it and being passionate from the beginning. But I did become passionate, and one of the things that makes me passionate about journalism is that it really is a way that we have of controlling the narrative in what people are talking about, what people are thinking about, and indeed how the world operates. And so I like to think of journalism as not just you know, upholding freedom of speech and the First Amendment, freedom of the press. It is all that, but it's also really, it shapes the way we see ourselves and the world around us. So for me, that became the passion, I guess you could say. I'm going to try to start sharing my screen now. And if somebody has a question, please just let me know, because I can't see it while I'm on the screen. Can you see my slide?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Very good. We can see it. Life's good.
Okay. So one of the things that sort of drew me into journalism was what I call the power of the pen. Back then, you really did use a pen. Now it's the power of the keyboard. But it's that ability to shape the narrative. And I think that that's what gives the media its power. And I say that because the narrative, you know, the control of the narrative, as I said earlier, shapes how we see ourselves, but also how we see everybody else. You know, when I say the media in this instance, I'm talking about the larger media, the news especially, but also film, music, you know, gaming, all other forms of media. And so how we see the world is really, that determines how we think about ourselves, and how we think about ourselves is what forms our self-image and self-confidence. So for me, working in the press or the media really was a matter of trying to help shape that narrative as it pertained to African Americans in this country. And I think this, storytellers, especially journalists, can have real impact on the world. And that has been demonstrated over and over again by people like Ida B. Wells, who was a noted journalist who shone the light on lynching in the 30s and 40s, and really almost single-handedly public attention again to lynching and changed the narrative in that case. So I just think that there's a real power there, and this is one of my favorite quotes, and one of my favorite images, and that is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And again, it goes back to how you think about yourself and the degree to which that is shaped by the media. So again, I think before you even start to apply for jobs, or in the case of some of you who are graduating soon, I'm sure you've already started, I think there's some things you need to do. And one is figure out what it is you really care about. And so I just showed you what I care about, shaping the narrative. But I think you have to figure out for yourself, what is it that you want to do, and what is it that you think is important work for you to do. And then you have to also find out what you're good at. And unfortunately, those two things often aren't the same. What you are good at sometimes is what you are passionate about or what you care about, but not always. However, what you're good at will carry you through. If you can make money at it, it will carry you through so that you can do those things that you care about. And also, I think that every student in college now, whether you're a freshman or a senior, should have an elevator pitch and have it ready to go. Somebody tell me what the elevator pitch is and what yours is, if you have one.
Nick.
An elevator pitch?
Mm-hmm.
You know what an elevator pitch is?
Yeah, it's like how you sell yourself in a few seconds.
Come up and give us your elevator pitch. I know you're ready because Nick already has a job lined up.
Ah.
What would you do if I didn't have a
Oh, I only picked on you because you have a job lined up. That's not the preset I want. Maybe that's the preset I want. Maybe that's not the preset I want. Ah, that's me. That's the board.
Yeah, I think he's in the middle of it.
Okay, there you go. So you're right a little bit. Yeah, it's really the white table, but you're talking to the camera.
Okay, so my elevator pitch?
Yeah.
I mean, give me like, who am I speaking with? What am I trying to achieve?
So I'm somebody who has a job. How would you pitch me, or what would you say to get my attention?
I would say something along the lines of, I'm the sort of person who is able to seek out a project from beginning to end and problem solve quickly and efficiently, working both alone and with a team to make sure every potential outcome is at least considered, if not resolved. And through my organizational skills and commitment to a cause, I think I fit in pretty well into any group or any task by anyone.
Okay. So it was a little long. You have to be in a really tall building in the elevator for you to get all that out, but it was good. I mean, I think you were specific. But yeah, I mean, it's really, you have to polish that so that when somebody, the idea is that you're in an elevator going up and, Jay-Z gets in the elevator and, you have seconds to sort of say something and impress him or get him to pay attention to your product or your service. And so what would you say? How would you pitch it? So I think that you should always have that ready to go, especially when you're in the market for a job. Thank you for playing along, Nick. I'm just going to speed through these because I'm sure you already have heard most of this from your professors and from your career services people. But for resumes, I always say KISS, keep it short and simple. Use a basic design. Don't try to get too fancy or exotic. Be careful with color. Sometimes it can make you look crazy if you use too much. Stick to one page. I mean, especially at this point in your career, you're not expected to have so much experience that you need more than one page to tell it. I always say focus on skills, less on the job, but I'll show you an example of a student who I thought did a nice job of highlighting her skills. I always tell students, when you're trying to flesh out your resume, don't forget about those community activities and volunteer jobs that you had, or trips that you took, or anything that you can use to show your involvement, especially clubs and organizations. That's one of my keys for students who didn't have a lot of experience, was join something, right? Join something. And where possible, if you have an officer role in any of these organizations, especially an elected officer role, highlight that on your resume because it shows leadership. Always also counsel students to think about one-time experiences that they had. Maybe it was something that, again, was just a one-off that you took part in, or that you took a leading role in, that you can highlight and showcase some of your skills in management. Again, no typos. I mean, and I know everybody says this, but it really does distract from you, and from, in some places, just toss it. They just don't even look any further. If they see a typo, they toss the resume in the trash. So it's that serious. If you have to pay somebody, have somebody look over it after you. Don't pad your resume with, every job you ever held and every duty you ever did. Likewise, don't short yourself and just have, course load. That's not good. Be consistent with style, and where possible and where relevant, use the AP style book. So this is the example. I'm not saying that this is a perfect resume. I just like the design of it and the cleanliness of it. And you can see that she has her skills highlighted, sort of coming down right under her contact information, which I thought was a nice way to do it. And her skills, are kind of broad-based: data entry, grant writing, web publishing, advocacy, public speaking. So that covers a lot of things, but her experience is actually pretty thin. So again, I thought that was just a good example of a resume that was nicely done with tasteful color. So assuming that you make it, you got your resume together, you got your elevator pitch together, now you're ready to put in your application for a job. One of the things you're going to hit first up is the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system that most large and many small companies now use for people applying for jobs. And so you apply online and they ask you for certain information, and that is how the company tracks you in the system. So the key to these ATS systems is making sure that you use the keywords in your resume and your cover letter that they're asking for in the job posting. So that's something that a lot of people overlook, or they think it's not that important. But technically, you should be revising and customizing your resume and cover letter for each position you apply for. So that's how you work in those keywords that are specific to that job posting. And then be very careful about the attachments. A lot of times the attachments, to upload an attachment there'll be very specific instructions. It can't be over a certain size. It can't be a certain type. And students often overlook that or try to do it anyway, and they end up, their resume ends up getting kicked out of the system, their application. So this is a stat I picked up last year. It may not be totally accurate now because it's over a year old, but it was that 75%, almost 75% of resumes that go through these kind of systems get kicked out for one reason or another. And a lot of times it's because you haven't done the keywords correctly.
So, Shirley,
yes.
I'm just going to emphasize that point because I think when she says keywords, you guys think, keywords, right? But when she's saying keywords, she's really literally meaning, look at the job ad, and pull the words out of that ad and put them in your resume or your,
The exact words, yes.
not
The
synonyms, the exact words.
Yes. Yeah. Um, so, I think that the other thing I want to say before I move to the application is the cover letter should not just be a repeat of your resume. It should just regurgitate everything that's on your resume. Your cover letter is really your chance to show your character, your personality, more of your values can come through in the cover letter than can in the resume. So an example would be instead of saying in your cover letter, I'm confident my social media skills can be an asset. Okay, that's pretty generic. And it says you have social media skills, but it doesn't really say what they are. You could say something like, the 3 months that I spent running the Twitter and Instagram accounts for my sorority, sharpened my skills and drove traffic to the site, or something like that. So you want to work in those cases where maybe this isn't on your resume that you did this, although it should be. But it may be like you were a part of a group or a club and you just did it for a couple months or something. The cover letter is a place where you can work that in. And so again, the cover letter should be customized to the job posting and should pull those exact phrases. And if they ask for somebody who's skilled in audience engagement, you want to make sure the words audience engagement appear at least once or twice in your cover letter. So that's the trick, I guess, for the ATS systems. In terms of other things that applications are now asking for, is most of them are asking for video essays. So whereas before, especially journalism, you would have to write an essay. Now, a lot of times they'll ask you to record a minute, 2 minutes on answering a question or addressing a topic. And you have to upload that to their site and they review it as part of your package. So the thing about that is, of course, you got to check your lighting. You got to make sure your audio is clear, crisp, and you have to make sure your background is appropriate for a professional setting. Not sitting in your bed, with your knees up, your legs up. Not, you want to present a professional surrounding. And you have to practice. Don't just do a one take and you're done. Practice it. Look at it and see how you look, how you come across. Maybe ask somebody else to look at it, because that those kinds of things will help you to stand out. Also, virtual interviews are common now, of course, because of COVID, and I think that they'll probably be common going forward, where you don't actually travel to the office and meet the person who's hiring you. You do a Zoom call or some other interface. And my daughter, who just started a new job a few months ago, her experience was that she had to meet with the entire team. So she wasn't just interviewing with her hiring editor, she was also interviewing with like 8 or 9 other people. And so, you should be prepared for that. And, again, treat it as a professional interview, even though it will be more challenging because there will be more people on the call. Do your research always, that goes without saying. And, but don't just do superficial research on the company that you're hiring, that you're interviewing with. Anybody can Google the company and see what comes up. You want to be a little bit more thorough, and you want to, in your research, come up with at least 2 to 3 questions that show that you've done your research, right? So when it's your turn to ask your questions, you want your questions to reflect the research that you've done. So for instance, you want to know who the CEO is and the top C-suite people in the company. You want to be able to recognize those names. But you also want to have 2 to 3 questions. Like I said, one might be, I see that your company was purchased last year by Acme. What impact, if any, has that had on your newsroom, right? So that shows, one, you're curious, you want to know, what the impact has been, but also that you are aware, that you've paid attention, you've tracked this company. So those are the kind of questions I think would be impressive to anybody and also show that you've done some research. Somebody wanted to say something?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay. And then, follow-up is so important and is so often overlooked by young people looking for opportunities. Just because it's an interview on Zoom, you still send a thank you. Now it's a little more challenging knowing, I always used to advise students to send handwritten thank you notes to the office. That's challenging now because people aren't in their offices. And so, you'd have to have a home address to get to somebody. But, I just think it's important to follow up with an email or something acknowledging that, this person took time out to interview you and to speak with you. I usually say within a week of the interview, you should send something out. And then keep in touch as appropriate. And when I say as appropriate, I mean, you don't want to just every week send an editor an email for no reason. But, there you can find opportunities. So if you were talking about something in an interview with that person, a topic about, electric cars or something, and you see an article about electric cars that touches on the subject you were talking to them about, you can forward that to them and just with a note saying, hey, this brought to mind our conversation last week. Thanks for the interview, right? Something like that. Or if you got a promotion on your job or you changed positions, you moved, you can send them a note saying, hey, just wanted to update you on my career. I'm now doing X, Y, Z. Hope we can still work together at some point in the future, right? So that's the way you stay in touch. That's, kind of contact appropriate. And don't worry too much about annoying people or bugging people. Where's my call? Yeah, this is my slide. If you could stop bugging me, that'd be great. I mean, there are some, and in my time at the Post, I did a lot of hiring. There was probably one person that I would say really annoyed me because he was so persistent with his his contact. But everybody else, I think it was, if anything, they undersold themselves. And so the reason you want to keep that contact is because as jobs open up, maybe not the job you originally applied for, but as other jobs open up, then you're in top of mind because you just sent them an email or they just heard from you last week, whereas somebody that they interviewed 6 months ago is not as top of mind. So that's one of the reasons you do that. And so I think that it's hard to really annoy somebody with emails unless you do it in a way that just doesn't make sense. Also in the question part of the interview, don't be afraid to bring up controversy that the company may have been involved in or some bad publicity or something. Sometimes people will shy away from those topics, like they're just afraid to ask. But, to me, it shows that you're aware and that you're interested in the company and that you have, that you have a clue, basically. If you just totally ignore something, especially something that's been in the news, it seems a little odd to me. So it's okay to ask about that. And it also, I think, reminds the interviewer that process is a two-way process, right? You're interviewing for a job, but you're also checking out this company and to see if you want to work there, if it's a place you want to be. So don't forget about your questions and making sure you get your questions answered. I think I'm going to wrap up. I want to go back to the conferences. So in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. To me, that became so clear, this past year. One of the opportunities that I see for students now is that you can go to just about every journalism conference there is, and just about every job fair there is online. And it costs you, if anything, very little compared to the cost if you had to travel there. And I'll take this moment to plug the Dow Jones Emerging Journalist Program. We do send students to some of the journalism conferences at no cost to them, or we pay their registration, I should say. So if you want to know more about that, feel free to hit me up later. But here are these are just the ones I could name off the top of my head. There are 8 conferences that you can attend, and every conference is a chance to meet somebody who's hiring. I mean, most people who go to these conferences are managers or editors who are in a position to hire. And most of these conferences also have components that are job fairs specifically. But even when there's not a job fair component, you can still meet people, you can still network in a way that really is ideal for hiring. So you go to these conferences, you know, even in the virtual world, you attend a panel or a discussion, you take note of the people who are on the panel, especially if any of them are in a market you want to be in. And after the panel, you approach them or you ask a question that, you know, puts you in a favorable light to them, and you strike up a contact. You know, you make a contact there. And so the conferences, I think, are really a cost-effective way in this pandemic to really kind of keep yourself in the job market. And again, if you're interested in applying, and I would just add here that, you know, the copy editor, the Society for Editors Conference is ACES. ONA is Online News Association, NAHJ, National Association of Hispanic Journalists. You don't have to be Hispanic to go to the NAHJ conference. You don't have to be African American to go to NABJ. There are other kinds of people there. And it's, again, the job fairs are some of the best ones. So I would just encourage you to think about attending some of these conferences and applying for some jobs during them. And even at the conference, you know, when you meet somebody in a conference, make sure you follow up with them and thank them for their time. This is the quote I'll end on. I really believe that leaders are not, you know, that you can spot a leader usually from a mile away. And this is just a Zora Neale Hurston quote that I really like. Those that don't got it can't show it. Those that got it can't hide it. And to me, that's leadership. If you're a leader, you can't hide it. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, you just sort of rise to the top, or you take charge, or you're in control in some way. And so that's the kind of person that people are looking to hire. So please, when you interview with these companies, show enthusiasm, be excited, be, you know, show some passion and excitement. And I know it's hard. I'm not a very bubbly kind of person, and so these screens make it really hard. But you may have to put a little extra out there on the screen to show that you have some excitement and passion when you're interviewing for a job. And I'm going to stop there because I've been talking a while, and just leave you with this thought that, you know, stay calm, be flexible, adjust, and adapt. And you've already shown that you can do that just in the past year. So just keep going. I will make sure that Dr. Wilson has my contact information, and you all can find me, of course, on Twitter and LinkedIn, but that's my email as well. So let me stop sharing.
They had your email and the information for class, so they definitely have your email address.
Right. And so the question I have for you all before you get to ask me questions is, does anybody know who Alexi McCammond is? Does that name ring a bell? Alexi McCammond?
Yes, wait, oh, wait, so she can see it. She's back there.
Okay, could you tell us, can you introduce yourself and tell us who she is?
She was.
Talk really loud because the mic's over here.
Oh, it's over here.
Yeah, but you got to stand
Oh, I
over there.
understand.
I didn't design this classroom, for the record.
No.
My name's Alexis, and she was the editor for Teamvote, and like kind of got fired before she got started. That's kind of my answer.
Could you hear her?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that last part.
Yeah, she had basically lost her job at the Teamvote before it even kind of started, based on like her old social media and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So have you guys discussed this as a class?
No.
Okay. So I guess I just want to hear from students who are familiar with it. And if you're not, you can just Google her real quick and see. But like what you think about that outcome. So she essentially resigned before she could be fired, I guess, from this Teen Vogue position as editor-in-chief because of something that she tweeted when she was a teenager. Like, and you know, she's in her 20s now, I think, but she was like 17, 18 when she tweeted these race comments. And so I'm curious to if you think that was the right verdict or whether she should have, you know, been allowed to keep her job, or what you think about that situation. Anybody?
Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Yaroslavy.
No, Scoochie, there you go.
I think with the situation, it's kind of hard because she apologized in 2019. Those tweets for the research team again. I do feel for her because I do think people can change, but also at 18, at 17, you're kind of old enough to know what's wrong and what's not, and what's wrong and what is right. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about it.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're on the side of more or less she got to pay the consequences.
Yeah, like I do feel for her. I feel for anybody who grew up with Twitter and social media and was posting stuff, not realizing that it's going to show up not even 20 years from now, but like 10 years from now. Because I remember getting the Twitter when I was 12 or 13. I wasn't very active on it. But Twitter was daily and Instagram was daily. And I remember seeing people on my classes posting stuff like, oh, you shouldn't have posted that. But I don't know if anyone that I know will ever post at least 15 years old editor. But I guess it just shows that your history, whatever you posted 10 years ago as a teenager, will affect you as an adult. I'm sorry, I'm looking there and I'm looking here.
I know, and I can, sometimes you're going in and out, your voice is going lower, so sometimes I can't hear everything you're saying, but yeah. Anybody else have thoughts or disagree with that? I didn't think she was going to lose her job over it. I mean, I thought it was going to be an issue. I didn't think she was going to lose her job, but yeah, go ahead.
My name's Natalie, and I think that she should have been able to keep her job. I think people change, and if she apologized for it, I mean, yeah, people need to be given second chances.
Mm-hmm. Does it matter what she said? In other words, you know, should that play into it, like the context or the way she said it or what she said, or should it just be, you know, just like if you say the N word, that's it, you know, like doesn't matter what context you put it in or how you used it. If you used it, it's it. Should it be the same with in this case?
I think it depends on the context,
Mm-hmm.
and if she was apologetic or not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Got one more. You can just stand up and talk really loud.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I actually just did an article about this for my class.
Like really loud.
Oh, like really loud? Okay. So I just did an article about this for my like ethics class, and I was talking about her situation. Personally, I don't think that she should have lost her. Okay. Hello. So like personally, I don't think that she should have lost her job over it. I do feel like she was apologetic, but I do think that like what you said, like words do matter, and like her phrasing and the words that she chose to use do matter. I think that we maybe are missing an opportunity to educate people. To me, like a lot of things that people say, like they say them because they don't know any better. And I know that at a certain point, once you're 18, 19 years old, you should know better. But if you've never been taught anything different, how are you ever going to learn? So I think that maybe we're missing an opportunity to kind of educate people when they go through these things instead of just like canceling them and telling them like, you're done, you don't get the job anymore. So that's my 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah. It is a hard thing. It's a hard decision, you know, for anybody, I think, to make based on something you did. I mean, I shudder to think what would happen if some of the things I did at 18 and 19 ever were made public, you know?
Hi, my name's Clarissa. I just wanted to point out, I think the reason she lost her job was because Teen Vogue is kind of like transitioning from less entertainment and is focusing more on like social justice issues. That's what I've seen like lately. So I guess them having like the editor using that language in her past and then it coming back, it's kind of like contradicting what they're trying to do now.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize that. That's a good point.
I think they did the right thing to do if that's what they're trying to do with their brand now.
Yeah, good point.
Shirley, is it better? Is it better for you if people stand here? Can you hear them better?
Yeah, I can definitely hear them better. Yeah.
I will say, we have weekly memos, and I was writing about her on my memo. Some of the tweets that she tweeted was when she was in college about her TA. And though people are allowed to have second chances, and I do believe in second chances, I think you have people who didn't do those mistakes in the past who may be as qualified, if not more qualified than Lexi, that doesn't have that history of, because it wasn't just racist, it was also homophobic. She tweeted gay slurs as well. So that's just another input that I had, because she was tweeting stuff in college.
Right.
I don't know if it was closer to the end of college. I think more for the beginning of college, about her TA, about how he was Asian and all this other stuff. And then on top of that, not only racist, but homophobic. And I guess right now with everything that's going on with people being racist towards Asians, and then her Asian racist tweets resurfacing,
Yeah, the timing was definitely bad for her. But I mean, you know, I do think, to me, the thing is consistency. Like, and it's hard to be consistent because every situation is different, you know. And so, but I do think other people have been let go for similar things, you know. So now here's another question for you. Is this going to change your social media habit, or have you made a change in how you use social media as a result of these kinds of things? Or were you always squeaky clean on social?
And Shirley, while we've got some people coming up, I'll tell you, one of our previous guest speakers last week advised our students to scrub their social media. And so I'd be interested in hearing what you say about that as well.
Hello.
Hi.
I was just gonna say that I grew up with older parents, and so they were always very like, if you're gonna have social media, you need to make sure that you're not putting anything out there that's gonna come back later. Because like you said, like they didn't have any of that. They probably made like more mistakes than I did, or the same type of things that I did, but none of it's gonna resurface because they didn't have anything to document it like we do. So I mean, I've heard it for years to like keep your social media clean. And I also am just not the type, like it's embarrassing to post on social media anyways. So yeah, I've just heard that for years. So I don't think it's something that I'll necessarily have to worry about, which I'm thankful for. So
Yeah, that's good. And the sad part is that a lot of students are doing it to themselves. It's not like, you know, they're posting their own pictures and, you know, themselves in compromising situations. It's not like somebody else is like snapping photos, you know, in secret and putting them out there. They're doing selfies. So I just think it's really, it is something you have to be at least aware of, but not worried about.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Dakota. So my response to that would be, like for me personally, I've always kept it kind of like minimal use on social media. Like usually I just like jump on there to look at everything, but I don't really post that much. And what I have posted is not really, it's pretty basic stuff. So I think I still would go back through just in case there's something I retweeted or reposted that might be something to take into account. But for the most part, though, I think I'm okay with it.
And do you feel like, do you feel like that's inhibiting you in some way, or like, you know, keeping you from speaking your mind in some way?
A little bit, yeah, because I just don't have, like, I don't need to go back, but I would just do it just in case. But I already know, like, I haven't done anything, so.
Yeah, yeah.
So, as a person hiring for the Washington Post, Dakota comes up and applies for a job. Would you look at his social media and go, "Your social media is too clean"? Would that ever enter your mind?
If it were like really clean, I might think, do they have a second account somewhere else, But I mean, I think you expect there to be in this day and age, you expect every, young person to have some kind of social media presence. And there are some who don't. I mean, I had students at Howard who I had an assignment where I would make them get on Twitter and live tweet an event. And some of them had to like create an account because they were not on social media at all. And I told them, I said, well, you can delete it as soon as the assignment is over. And some of them did. I was surprised, but some of them got hooked and then they never got rid of their Twitter account after that. But I do think that a clean account to me just shows that, you're pretty smart. Now, clean is different than no presence, right? I mean, again, I think you said that you watch what you say, you might retweet, you look, but you don't really comment a lot. And that's I'm more like that too. I do a lot of reading, and I do some liking and retweeting, but I don't do a lot of, original thoughts on social media. Yeah, which is unfortunate because I do think it's a perfect medium for being creative and putting yourself out there, but it's also the perfect medium for people to use it against you.
Yeah, I think there's a big mental health aspect to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of people get sucked up into how many likes they get or how much interaction, and just
Mm-hmm.
make it look like make themselves look the best they can. And I don't like that's something I don't want to get involved in, and I don't want to have that thought every time I get on Facebook or something like that. So I just don't tap into that.
Yeah, good for you. Thanks. Anybody else? So those are my questions. So
Nick is shying away, yet Nick is going to be a social media person for his. All right, so this class is actually a two-part class. Half of them are here in person, then half of them will either watch I guess they're going to watch the video if they're not online, but it's actually a pretty diverse class. We have, a lot of diversity in terms of race, but also in terms of geographic, where they're from, and we've got people that are from the Caribbean islands, and so diversity in a lot of different ways of diversity. What advice would you give people just in light of diversity topics as they're out in the job workforce, and how that's going to impact their job search, but also their first few years on the job? How's it going to impact that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's hard, and it's not just for students who are students of color, and I think it's not just for those students anymore, that you have to be in a position to, first of all, I think you have to be willing to speak about it. And I know that a lot of times we've been sort of trained and taught to shy away from, especially in job interview kind of situations, to shy away from, race, money, I mean, there's a list of things that you're told, religion, don't talk about. But I do think that in this day and age, you have to be willing to speak on it, and acknowledge that there is an issue out there that is basically sweeping the world. I mean, it's not just the U.S. anymore, and that if you're a person of color, I think it affects you in that you're sometimes sought after now. A lot of I have not seen this much hiring in journalism certainly in the last 8 to 9 years. I have not seen this level of hiring. Some of that hiring is being generated by companies wanting to make sure that they have diversified their staffs, and so of course they're looking for journalists of color. So that, in that regard, it helps journalists of color, but we also know that there's this churn that happens where companies hire all these people of color, and then they're the first ones to be let go, or it doesn't work out and they leave. And so it's one thing to hire, it's another thing to retain and to promote and give people of color opportunities within the company. So I think getting a job is certainly a worthy goal, but it shouldn't be the only goal. You should also be trying to get in somewhere where your voice will be respected and appreciated and sought, right? So, but I think for white students, I think that it's also a good chance for you to, highlight what diversity you bring. So again, diversity is not just racial. There is a lot of economic diversity that needs to happen in journalism. It's become a much more elite kind of profession than it used to be. And I think that, we need students from all backgrounds. And we don't talk about it a lot, but religious diversity is also something that we should be seeking in our workplaces.
How many of you guys in this class are first generation college students? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So half the class is first generation college students, and that's true at our university too. 45 to 50% of our students are first gen college students. I agree with you completely. That's bringing some diversity to the workforce that wasn't there before, because they have a unique perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the reasons I talk about that. I grew up in a blue collar environment, that I came and never would have. I'm pretty sure I'm probably one of the few people at the Washington Post who had a parent who worked in the steel mills. I'm pretty sure that was not common then. A lot of those people who worked there when I was there and still are Ivy League, their legacy. Their parents went to Harvard. They went to Harvard. They edited their law review. It was pretty lofty air for, this girl from Pittsburgh. So I think that that's a diversity that you should embrace and,
well, I hadn't really thought about that, but you're a student from rural West Texas going to Midwestern State University that nobody at Washington Post has ever heard of. How do you get a job at the Washington Post? Or is that a realistic first step?
I think it's realistic if you have had a few internships under your belt. If not, I don't think it's necessarily realistic. But, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, those are jobs that I would say these days are probably your second or third step. But, again, I think anything's possible. A lot of times it's those connections you make. You make a connection with somebody, at a conference, and, maybe they've never heard of your school, but maybe they have, they've been impressed by your social media account, the way you've handled yourself on social or in LinkedIn, the questions you raise or the articles you share. So I think that there are ways to get people's attention now that didn't.
I'm Luke. So you kept talking about at the beginning about the power of the pen, which is really insightful. And I think you're very wise and you have a great perspective. So my question is I'm not a journalist, I'm not a journalism minor, but some people in here might be. So are news stations in the future of news, are they looking to hire people to create a narrative, or are they hiring people to simply give facts and let other people create a narrative? Because here, I know at Midwestern, we've learned we are supposed to create facts and let other people create narratives. So I'm just wondering, what is the future of news? Or has the future of news already gotten there, I guess?
Yeah, I think there's definitely much more opinion journalism now than there ever was in the past. And a lot of stations and a lot of news organizations use opinion frankly, to, to sort of pay for the facts, So a lot of readers, subscribers, they want the opinion, even though they say they don't, they do, and they, the more outrageous the opinion, the better. And so news organizations have fed into that. I do think more and more the future is in some of these nonprofits that are smaller, like ProPublica, the Marshall Fund, the Marshall Project, Texas Tribune. I mean, there are several who have started their own, and so they're kind of eschewing the traditional large media companies like the Times and the Post. And I think that those may be the future. I think that they will be more fact-based and less opinion-based. And I think they will, and when I say shape the narrative, I think that telling facts can shape the narrative just like telling opinion can. So, the facts, to me, shaping the narrative means telling all the facts, not just select facts that make certain people look one way and certain people look another way. I think you have to be, complete in your fact telling. And so, so I think that the future of the media will be shaping narratives based more on facts and also figures. A lot of those companies those startups that I mentioned are database. So they have data journalism as a strong component of their work. And, they say the numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Hello, my name is Carrington Bradley.
Hi.
I know you've been in journalism for most of your career, so this question won't necessarily apply to you, but I know you've been a hiring person before, so you might have seen this. But I wanted advice on if someone's been in college for so long, they in their degree, they have a certain skill set, and let's say they get a job that directly correlates with what they've been earning their bachelor from and training from, but they decide they don't like it. What kind of advice can you give to someone who wants to totally change career tracks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not uncommon. I mean, a lot of people, get a job in what they went to school for and discover doing it every day is a lot different than, learning about it. So I think it depends on how much different it is than what you want, what you studied for. But one thing I'll say about journalism and about communications in general is that the skills that you learn in journalism do transfer very nicely. So writing, research, fact checking, some fields it's called validation. So it's just different ways of saying things, jobs that exist in other areas. But I do think the writing part is one that, I can't think of any occupations where being able to write well, being able to consolidate a bunch of information into concise language, clear, is not a valuable skill. So I think that if you can use that, to sort of help you make the bridge, and then once you get into the other field, you can learn those other parts that might be more interesting to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Daisy. I know you were talking about how your teacher had a big influence in what you studied in college. Do you think otherwise you would have found your way to journalism, or what do you think you would have studied?
That's a good question. I don't think I would have. I think I probably would have, because I wanted to be a teacher. When I was in high school, I always thought I wanted to be a second grade teacher or something. And I don't know why. I think probably because I really admired my second grade teacher. But, I didn't have a big, my world was not that big. I knew what a newspaper was. Of course, I knew what TV journalism was, but I didn't see anybody like me in those roles, directly. So it's probably something I would not have thought I could do, but for her telling me that. So I probably would have gone into education and become a teacher, or, at least started in that path. The only other field I think I might have found myself in is history or something, because I always liked reading. And again, historians and, you know, researchers, you have to read a lot. So, but yeah, I probably would not have.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Armando. I'm not really more into journalism. I do write some, but I don't write a lot of journalism. I do more video journalism. So my question is, what do you say like video has in the role of print journalism? How big will that be in the future, or do you see a future for it?
How big a role will video be in the future? I think it is the future. I mean, I think that video I mean, I think there'll always be print. I mean, I think there'll always be text-based knowledge, but I think video is where, you know, the majority of the people will be telling their stories is video. Especially because now it's so much easier to record, and it's so much easier to share it. And so I think video is in the past, when I was still at the Post and video was still, you know, digital actually was still becoming you know, growing into what it is now. The news organizations all bet heavily on video, and they all sunk a lot of money into hiring all these videographers and video editors and putting, you know, the video players on their websites. And it just didn't catch on because I think they were trying to do more long form video. You know, they were trying to do storytelling in video format, and people just weren't at that time ready to sit and watch their screen for, you know, 7 or 8 or even 10 minutes in some cases. And so I think that now things have changed a lot, and that now people are more willing to sit and watch their screen and watch a whole feature-length movie on their screen. Whereas, you know, 15 years ago, they weren't ready for it. So I think video is where it's at. And I think you'll see a lot of it, growth in hiring in that area.
Also, I was going to go to the second thing was like, you see like the Washington Post hiring like videographers, like they hire those. I didn't know that for sure. Like,
yeah, they have a team. Now, again, since I've left, it's been, you know, 8 years since I left, but they had a team of probably 12 or 13 people on the video team. And so now I'm sure, and you know, they have specialties. Some of them just do politics. Some of them just do sports. Some of them, you know, so yeah, it's a big area, and they definitely hire the videographer, the people who do the shooting, as well as the people who do the editing, and sometimes, you know, people who design the frames, and, you know, I mean, it's a very elaborate setup that they have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Also, I should note that NPR, New York Times, Politico, all of them have video components.
All right, I'm back. So I've asked this question to a couple of the other guest speakers. Obviously, we've been talking about diversity and how diversity can really aid in office and really any career area in terms of opportunity or new ideas and stuff like that. But obviously, getting into maybe smaller businesses that have like a traditional way of thinking or a traditional way of doing things, there might be more of a reluctance to change their outlook on things and change the way they do things. So I guess my question is like, how would you deal with an individual or working with an individual like day after day who has like a closed mindset of like, oh, I'm going to do things my way. I'm not going to listen to you and be receptive to change.
Mm-hmm. Is that individual in charge, or are they just another employee?
Either.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes a big difference if they're in charge, because if they're in charge, there's not a lot you can do to change the situation. I mean, you can try to change their mind, but if ultimately they're running the show, you know, you have to either agree that you can deal with them or you're going to move on. If they're not running the show, they're another, you know, employee like you are, then I think you have more wiggle room, I guess, to try to affect change. And, you know, I used to believe before January 6th, before, before a lot of things, I used to believe that talking, people just sitting down talking was the best way to help people see somebody else's point of view. But I have to say, I'm not as confident anymore that talking is, the solution here. And I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you, but I just feel like we are at a point in this country where people don't see things the same way, and no matter how much talking you do, it doesn't seem like it changes the perspective. So how you get across to somebody who is stuck in their ways, that's a good one. I don't have an answer for you, but I do think that showing the truth is always a good start. Showing them the truth, and again, some people will look at the truth and still say it's a lie, and so. But I think you have to start there, showing them the truth.
Thank you.
Tough question to end on, huh?
Yeah. I like I said, I wanted to have an upbeat answer, but I don't.
But it's the reality of the workforce today, right? It is.
Yeah.
So I want to just ask you, Shirley. You mentioned all those conferences, and there's a bunch more conferences in terms of employment, but there's also advantage of going to those conferences once they get on their first job.
Oh yeah.
And I was just going to let you get the last few minutes, but I thought that might be one thing that you want to hit up, that these conferences have so many value added to their careers and their lives. And then you get the last few minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I definitely, for a long time now, have been involved in National Association of Black Journalists, copy editors, ACES, American Copy Editors Society, less so in SPJ, but a couple others, And as an employee, when I was recruiting for the post, I went to all of the conferences, NABJ, AAJA, on and on. And so I can tell you that these conferences act as, they really are the closest thing we have to networks in journalism. I mean, especially for, for many of me and my colleagues, many of us worked at the same place for decades, which is not as common these days. A lot of younger people move around a lot, but the conference is where you meet up with all the people you worked with over the years. And so the more places you work, you go to these conferences and everybody's there, and it's, you learn so much. Eventually you become the one teaching, you become a panelist, you become sought after to speak on a topic or an area of expertise. And again, it just snowballs. And so once people see you speaking, then, they'll reach out to you for other opportunities. When jobs come open, they'll think about you for that job. So there really is a benefit to the conferences. And I think, I've learned skills there. I've learned about different social media trends. So I think it's important to stay up to speed and to join one. I mean, it doesn't matter which one, I don't guess, but, just join and be active in it. It's also a chance to give you some experience as a leader. If you, become an officer of one of these national conventions or national organizations, it's very good for your grounding and for your training as a leader. So it's been a pleasure. I really I enjoyed talking to you guys. I hope that you got something out of it, and I'm happy to answer any other questions offline. Wish you the best, and hope that for those of you who are coming out of school this year, that you find the job market plentiful.
Hey. Thank you, Shirley, and we'll see you.
Take care.
Bye.